This week's episode is why sales and marketing should be working in concert together.
Welcome to the Marketing Made Great podcast. In each episode, we'll be sharing with you the tips, tricks, and techniques from the top sales and marketing experts from around the globe that will make marketing simple for your business. Here's your host, Mark Treager.
Welcome to our second episode of the Marketing Made Great podcast. Now, I've got to warn you just a little bit. The audio is going to be a little rough this week because we're still getting used to our studios here in Atlanta, Georgia. But at any rate, I'm real excited about having the opportunity to introduce you to my sales trainer, Simon of Sandler Training, and his perspective on how sales and marketing should be working in concert. So with that in mind, here's Al. So let me be the first to introduce you to Simon of Sandler Training. Al, why don't you share with our audience a little bit of your background and how you ended up in this crazy world of sales?
Right out of college.
Oh, yeah?
Joined the dark side. Right out of college. Yeah, 1977.
You became a salesman.
I became a salesman. 1977. Yeah, I had two job offers coming out of college. One was to be the third shift foreman in a cat food plant in Marion, Ohio. Glamorous, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the other one was to sell cash registers for NCR Corporation in Columbus, Georgia.
Right.
And so didn't know if I could sell, but I didn't want to be a foreman in a cat food plant, so we headed for Columbus.
Wow, dun dun dun.
Exactly. Sold cash registers, and that's what I did all my career. So
Okay.
24 years as a corporate sales guy. Most of that selling actually technology more to banks.
Okay, all right.
The first couple years was the cash register gig. It was cool.
So what made you move into sales training?
It was a fairly long story, actually, but
Okay.
I was laid off in 2001.
Okay.
In 2001, after signing a letter of intent with a very large bank for a $15 million deal. The company that I was with decided they didn't need me anymore, but right before the contract was to be signed.
Right.
And that was the second time in my 24-year corporate career where I had been fired.
Okay.
And so I decided two things. One, go for suing this company and get my commission. And two, to get out of the corporate world.
Okay.
And so I had come across Sandler a couple years before.
Right.
And it was huge because I had really been an order taker prior to that point. I was not really a professional salesperson. So 22 years as a salesperson, I was really not a professional. And so we, in my company I was with at the time, introduced us to Sandler Training.
Okay.
It was called Sandler Sales Institute at the time.
Right.
And I'm in my mid-40s, and it tells me, hey, look, you're not really a professional salesperson. And so I had this midlife crisis.
Okay.
And so it changed the way I sold. And then a couple years later, again, being laid off, so to speak, so they didn't have to pay me a big old check.
Sure.
And so I decided, you know what, let's get out of the corporate gig, let's get in control of my career,
Okay.
and let's do the Sandler Training thing.
All right. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, in the pure disclosure nature here, I've got to tell people that I've been in Sandler for 30 years, and Al is my sales trainer now, and he refers to me often as being in the remedial program, which I really appreciate.
I'm sure you do.
Yes.
And one day you'll come out of that.
Yes. Nothing but warm and fuzzies every week. But now you're sitting here wondering, what in the heck is a salesman doing here on a marketing podcast?
From the dark side.
From the dark side, actually.
Yeah.
So really what we thought, we'd sit here and talk about sales and marketing, how it should intermix. So how are sales and marketing alike in your world?
You know, I think of the whole idea of growing revenue.
Okay.
And you can grow revenue by getting new accounts, or you can grow revenue by growing existing business. And most of my clients want to do both.
Right. Makes sense.
It's a lot easier to grow existing business than to get
Absolutely.
new accounts most of the time.
Sure.
And so I think you need both the sales and marketing to work in concert. I look at it as like marketing is the Airforce, given the air cover. And sales is that hand-to-hand combat of the U.S. Army.
Okay.
Going in there and defeating the foe one at a time.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
So how do you think they differ if they're somewhat similar?
It's interesting because I think they do overlap.
Okay.
And I'm not a marketer, so people that are listening to this are probably all marketing gurus. But I look at marketing as really two different ways. One is branding.
Okay.
And the other one is lead gen.
Right.
And I don't know if in your mind they differ, if they're the same, but I look at those two major functions of marketing.
Okay.
And where I think sales and marketing mix is really in the middle there, which in a place I call prospecting, which is getting new opportunities in the pipeline.
Absolutely.
And so lead gen leads to that. I think branding leads to that eventually. It's a long-term game, really, with branding.
Gotcha.
But you can do lead gen projects or lead gen initiatives that would come out of the marketing department, so to speak.
Right.
And that would allow opportunities to fill the pipeline.
Yeah, definitely. So let me ask you a dangerous question.
Okay.
Do you think sales and marketing should actually talk to each other?
I'm hoping that is actually not a dangerous question,
right?
And not and one that people would take as just normal, because absolutely they have to be working in concert. They have to complement each other in order to maximize opportunities.
Absolutely. I mean, typically, marketing sits in its own little silo, and sales sits in its own silo. And when they seem to get together, there's always fireworks. So, with that in mind, the two disciplines, do you think they need two different skill sets, or are they complementary?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that salespeople need to be good questioners. I think marketers need to be good communicators in terms of content. That's the biggest thing in terms of being different. But complementary skill sets, no doubt. They both have to have the mindset that we're out there to build revenue. We're out there to build companies, to build futures for people. And that's really what we're doing here.
Right.
And so we have to work together.
Yeah, so you're fighting the same enemy.
Absolutely.
You have to work together in concert. The thing that, marketing drives the sales or opportunities. So, if you could craft a perfect marketing campaign or give some advice to the marketing department of things that would help you out in the field to get more information to make your appointments or your opportunities better, what would be some of the things you would be looking for from a sales perspective?
I can tell you what I would not be looking for.
Okay.
Which is features, advantages, benefits, stuff.
What?
In the messaging.
What?
That goes out. Yes, because that tends to short circuit the sales process. The prospect really suspect at this point when they when they take some kind of action because of a marketing message that they see or hear, are going to jump to conclusions and make the salesperson's job a lot more difficult. I want this widget that has that blue thing you talked about in the ad.
Right.
And so now we're talking about products and specific things, and that may not be what they need.
Exactly.
So let's in starting the messaging, let's not do the features, advantages, benefits thing that's been going on for centuries.
Right. I mean, that's the danger zone. And being on both sides in what I do, you're absolutely correct. And listening, I think marketing sometimes needs to go out on sales calls so they can actually listen to what prospects and customers are saying. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, they need to go on sales calls with people like you who understand at a very detailed level, intimate level, both sides.
Right.
Because you wouldn't want the marketer going on a sales call and just
showing up and throwing up.
Well, there's that. Yeah, what we call unpaid consulting.
Right.
And what every salesperson fears is the teammate who's out there making claims and promises that can't be delivered.
Right.
And in production, always fears that from the salesperson. If the salesperson's out there making promises and claims that can't be delivered, then you have, marketing, sales, and production all need to be working together too. But yes,
exactly.
If a marketer could see that
Right.
hand-to-hand combat, what that give and take in a live sales call really looks like when done by a professional,
Right.
Not by the former fraud that I was in my first part
Sure.
of my career, but the person who really understands what they're doing, uncovering what we call pain,
Right.
in the prospects, and so the prospect gets to discover what they really need and want and why,
Right.
and then to actually verbalize that.
Right.
If the marketer could see that, I think they would understand better what the messaging needs to look like.
Well, and I think the marketing strategies now are starting to change along those lines, at least what I see, because really when it comes down to it, customers or prospects only care about two basic things. What's in it for me if you help me? And two, how are you going to make me the superhero of my story, not yours?
Oh yes.
I'll give you a good example. DoubleTree Hotels.
Okay.
Okay? The cookie experience. Free cookies in the lobby all day. And what made me think of it is because you brought up marketing, sales, and operations working in concert to create an interesting outcome. Because 68%, they've tested it. They surveyed, I think, 68,000 or 75,000 of their customers, and 68% of them within 60 days talked to, I think, 2 or 3 people about the cookie experience. But it was an experience worked in concert with all 3 departments. And that's really kind of cool in my book.
It's a great example. Something so simple as a
Right.
cookie.
Exactly.
But yet tangible. People identify with that experience.
It's an experience by staying at that hotel. It's an outcome or a result from that experience. And I think if marketing, sales, and everybody got together on the same page, I think we start seeing more of those kinds of outcomes in its simplest form.
Well, it would certainly make things more effective in terms of gaining revenue.
Oh, absolutely. So, let me ask you some other kind of interesting questions that perplex me from a sales perspective as well. Do you think pricing should be listed on websites or other marketing media?
Absolutely not in the business-to-business world.
Okay.
I am completely and totally adamant against it.
Okay. Why so?
And because again, it short circuits the sales process, or certainly would introduce something that has to be dealt with
Right.
before you can really get good stuff happening here.
Okay.
I think in the B2C world, business to consumer world, retail world, I think that there's lots of places where pricing on the website is okay. Right. Simpler, more transactional sales.
A box of golf balls.
Yes, especially if your business model is one where you're not the premium priced provider. In the business to business, what we call B2B sales, I think that the only place where price on the website might make sense is in the e-commerce part of it, where someone can order online and pay online, and it is a transaction, and it doesn't need to have a salesperson there, which is probably typically going to be smaller items or add-on items, things like that.
Sure.
But if you've got someone who wants to look into buying a significant investment item, and it takes 2 people having a conversation, let's not cloud that conversation by making preconceived notions about pricing.
Okay. So premium selling from a marketing perspective as well, should you put out a proposal? Or we no longer do proposals as an agency owner. We do working documents. So I'd be interested to see what your take is on something like that instead of a proposal.
Yeah, working documents are a great way to do it. I'm very much in favor of that because the idea of a proposal, especially if you call it proposal, the prospect takes it as final.
Right.
And once they have your final in sales, they don't necessarily feel the need to talk to the sales professional anymore. And so communication just stops. And it's very difficult for the sales professional to be able to be in control of the deal, move it along to close when the prospect has your proposal and they're ignoring your voicemails and your emails.
Right.
And it's just a bad place to be. So the working document gives the idea that, okay, we're going to co-create together the solution. So prospect and sales professional together are co-creating the solution for the prospect. Prospect then gets pride of ownership, authorship, skin in the game, however you want to call it. It becomes their solution that they're helping to create. And when they're an active participant in that, then the communication continues to flow. So all the way from marketing through closed deal, communication is flowing.
Yeah, I agree with you. The more you have opportunities to communicate along the way, the better the end result usually is, and the relationship grows and fosters as it progresses.
Exactly.
Those are some great points. Okay, so now let's shift a little bit to the management side.
Yes.
Which is always the struggle between sales and marketing. Do you think the same person should be in charge of both?
I prefer not. Now, if you're talking about 100 employees or less, it's difficult to pay for both positions and different people.
Right.
And typically, when you find someone who's senior vice president of sales and marketing, that person either came up through sales or they came up through marketing.
Right.
Typically, and so whichever is their past, is their experience, they're going to lean toward that side.
Right.
And that's what makes it difficult. And you tend to get an imbalance between the sales efforts and the marketing efforts.
Right.
And so I would prefer to have separate people, like when we talked about skill sets. The
Right.
skill sets in producing good marketing and producing good sales are different, and the skill sets in managing marketing people and managing salespeople are different as well.
Right.
So that's why I'd prefer that they be different people. But I understand if you've got 100 employees or less, you can't really do that. So the trick then is to get someone who's competent in both, probably expert in one,
right,
and give them good training.
Right.
Give them good ongoing education.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Make sure that they can stay on top of. I'm not going to say both worlds. I'm going to say stay on top of the combined world.
Right. Well, you're right. In a lot of small businesses nowadays, it's more about sales, and you don't necessarily have time to focus a lot on marketing. Mm-hmm. And this is where a marketing person or agency that you can contract with can come in and maybe fill that gap so that the sales become more effective and the lead generation begins to grow to the point where maybe someday you can bring an in-house marketing team in. But again, it's critical no matter what, even if it's just a contractor to help you craft your marketing, makes a huge difference in the outcome from sales, I think.
Oh yeah, I think you're exactly right. And of course, as you know, we've done it in our own organization.
Right.
I don't pretend to be a marketing expert.
Right.
I have opinions, as you're getting here on this podcast, but
sure.
But I'm not an expert, and so we use someone who is an expert to help us on the marketing side, who also happens to be very good at sales herself.
Right, and which is rare.
That's been great. I think there's two people I know, and that's it. You and her. That's it.
Well, thank you. That was very gracious of you.
But you're still in the remedial.
Wow. Yeah. I'm hoping to graduate, guys, here very soon.
We'll see.
We'll see. Okay. Long road. Just more certification. That's what he wants from me. Okay. So now here's an interesting aspect that I know makes you kind of uncomfortable because I've known you for years, the world of social media. How do you think that's changed sales as we know it?
It's a sea change. That's a sea change.
Explain that.
It's a major shift in how business is done.
Okay.
I think. And by the way, I'm getting more and more comfortable, so it doesn't give me the heebie-jeebies nearly as much as it used to.
Good.
And that's probably your influence and Susan,
sure,
the marketing person I was referring to. Anyway, the whole idea is that it has changed the way that the sales conversation starts. And more now, people engage with you on the peripheral by seeing your posts and by getting familiar with your brand through LinkedIn or Twitter or both, or sometimes even in the B2B world, Facebook sometimes. So they're getting used to you, and they may even start to like, or even start a conversation with commenting. And a lot of times, before they ever actually agree to a phone conversation or, heaven forbid, a face-to-face meeting, they have already been tracking you on social media.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that's very true. They're tracking you on social media, but also too, with social media, there's a lot of other crazy opportunities that presents itself, because let's face it, now with social media and the web and Google, 85%, I mean, people will research you to the point where they're 85% certain they're going to go with a certain individual. So when they engage with you, you've got to respond. It's amazing to me that, if you're interested, please contact us form. If you're not responding to them within a day, it's over. I mean, most of the people, when they respond to our website and we get back to them within 15 minutes, they're like shocked. And I said, well, why are you shocked? He said, well, we've sent inquiries to other websites and bigger than you, and we've never heard back from them. I'm not only appalled, but I don't let any of my clients ever experience that.
It reminds me of so many companies have inbound leads that the sales team doesn't even follow up on.
Right.
That is unforgivable.
Right.
I mean, you have to engage with people at the time that they want to engage.
Yeah, and as a salesman, as a former salesman before I got into this crazy world of marketing 25 years ago, I called those bluebirds. Those were like free opportunities. Wow. Yes. I don't have to make 500 phone calls to get one opportunity. This is exciting. You
got someone who raises their hand and says, come talk to me. Right. You got to be all over it.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that I love that Sandler does that I think is really kind of cool is you have a lot of what they commonly refer to as lead gen opportunities, lists and things that they can download, especially off of your website, that gives them a better understanding of the sales process, information that helps them grow. And a lot of people don't realize, but if they're going to go ahead and give you their real name and an email address to download something, they've engaged with your brand. Now's the time to nurture that along. Now, they may not be ready to buy right then and there, but nurturing them is critical as well. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely, I do agree. And we track, of course, all of that, and
right.
We engage right away. We've got this engine pretty well tuned.
Absolutely.
A lot better than it was maybe even a year ago.
Oh, wow.
But, we have white papers. We have tools that we give away.
Right.
Videos, of course, a lot more videos these days. And people do engage that way.
Right.
And so, and it used to be, if you send someone an email within minutes after getting that inbound lead, they would think, oh my goodness, you're stalking me. I think that's, these days people expect it more and more now. They know they're being stalked.
Sure.
And they know, and the reason, of course, is because if you get an inbound lead from someone digitally, that means they're in front of their computer now, or they're on their mobile phone on your website or your app now. So let's go. Let's do the conversation now.
Right. Very, very good point. A lot of times too, just because the prospect may not be ready to buy now, doesn't mean that they won't buy ever. So if I'm going to talk to somebody about, let's say they say no today. Is there a strategy you could utilize for follow-up or to keep them kind of nurturing along in that process to the point where they become a customer?
There better be.
Wow. Okay.
I think.
I agree.
I think in your world you call that a nurturing campaign.
Right.
I believe is that the
that's
phrase?
it.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's crucial to a sales professional. Sales professionals have to be able to continue conversations 6 months out, 12 months out, whatever. So in my mind, a no for today just goes right back into that marketing engine.
Right.
That's, the nurturing campaigns where they get your newsletters, they get your offers, your free offers, or your your posts and
Right.
so on, videos, whatever it is
Right.
that you've got out there that gets to people. And again, because they keep tracking you, that if they had a
Right.
conversation with you, it needed to be a no for now.
Right.
Okay, no, a no is never forever.
Right, exactly. So there's probably 15 people that I track weekly or daily emails from them. They put out that much content. Now, I don't necessarily open them all, but my feeling is until they, unsubscribe, they're going to hopefully open something that I send them that they're going to go, wow, that's exactly what I need. And they're going to pick up the phone and call or send me an email. So you just never know what's going to happen by the content you put out there.
And it's very important that the sales professional handles that no well. They have to set the expectation that, okay, would you still be comfortable getting our weekly or monthly newsletter?
Right.
Are you interested in our possible podcasts or seminars or webinars that we're going to have, and make sure you get that information. So if you set that expectation, then you have someone who's not going to be a cold call a year from now.
Right.
It's going to be a warm conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody else's shot.
Right.
It also means that that competitors can't get in there.
Right.
They're not going to get in.
Right.
And so it's interesting what you said about the percentages of people who come into a sales conversation with preconceived notions of who they're going to go with.
Right.
That means marketing has done a great job of
Yes.
creating that trusted advisor status, or at least getting it started in,
Sure.
in the prospect's mind.
Right.
And sales professional needs to be able to take it from there. So do what they said they're going to do.
Right.
Over deliver and under promise.
Right.
And just make sure that the experience the customer has is top notch.
Well, and that's going back to what you said in the beginning. Brand is related to all of that, and part of the sales cycle and sales process is the experience that a prospect has from the moment they find the company all the way to the end result. And sales and marketing, in my opinion, needs to be in concert. And it's all part of that experience. Marketing may bring them to the dance, but if it's just another extension, sales is of marketing and that experience, then the customer gets serviced in multiple ways.
Yeah, well, they begin to associate a good feeling with the company.
Right.
And the people that they know at the company. Right. And then it becomes a chore to want to expand to other companies in the same space. They'll just stay with their one that they, their guy, their girl. They'll just do that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of the relationship you and I have. You always hold me accountable for when I don't necessarily do a good job in my messaging or whatever when we role play and so forth. And I really appreciate that you take that much care and concern to make sure I get it right. Because that 30-second commercial that I give or teach my customers to give is critical. And if it doesn't have the right content, you lose the message and you lose the opportunity.
I say this a lot, and I'm not sure people really believe me, but it's true. I think about all of my clients all the time in terms of how's their day going? How did that call go that they told me they were getting ready to have? How did that proposal meeting go? How did this go? How did that go? And and even more important, how are they feeling about themselves?
Sure.
How are they feeling about themselves? Because that's going to determine how effective they are on the next call.
Right.
And the next call. And it's so crucial. And I think that from a marketing standpoint, it's easy because you're somewhat removed from the end user experience.
Right.
You're not talking to the client, every day or every week. I think it's harder for marketing to have that feeling and keep that customer in mind all the time. And I think that it would do well, again, for sales and marketing to talk a lot, and so that marketing can have that pride of authorship of that new client that came in. And it's a lot easier to keep and grow existing business.
Absolutely.
And to get new business.
Well, and that's to give Sandler a compliment, being around for a couple of weeks now and all these years to watch them even evolve and watch in the last 5 years the amount of content and tools and support that they give the investment that you're making is amazing to me. That there's that much passion and, like you said, concern for what we're doing out in the field. And believe me, it has not gone unnoticed, and we really appreciate all that.
Well, sometimes we would like them to slow down a little bit because there's so much content coming out, so many tools coming out, and that it's overwhelming to us sometimes. But it's all designed, like you said, for that client to be able to thrive. Take it and just thrive.
Well, and also too, like what we try to talk to our clients about is having a roadmap, a repeatable system that makes sense, that generates opportunity and closes deals. You know, that's the one thing I've learned in the 30 years I've been with Sandler. It hasn't changed. The fundamental is still there, the 7 compartments in the submarine. Now, it may have expanded, but every time I mess up a scenario, the first thing you ask me is, well, what happened in such and such and such and such? And you go, okay.
Easy to debrief. It sure is.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, the submarine, the 7 steps of the Sandler selling system have not changed in years, and it's still the cornerstone of what we do. We've added a whole bunch of other content and customer.
But it all supports it.
Negotiating it, prospect. I mean, it's all. Again, the centerpiece is the Sandler selling system. The concepts, the timeless concepts of being focused on the prospect, like you said, making them the superhero of their own story, and taking the I, we, me stuff out of it from the selling side, and finding the real reasons why that particular person wants to do business with you, because people buy from people and people buy emotionally.
Right.
And then they justify intellectually. And I think marketing could really learn a lot from that too, and make sure the messaging supports that.
Sure. No, I agree. Wow, a lot of good content today.
We could go on for a while.
I know. That's the problem. Well, let me ask you a question. If we come up with an idea for a topic, would you be willing to come back?
Absolutely.
Awesome. That would be great.
I'd be honored to come back.
That would be great. We would appreciate it. So I got a couple of parting questions that I always like to ask my guests.
Okay.
If you had 2 things from a sales perspective, and you can bring marketing into this as well, that could impact your business right now today, what 2 pieces of advice would you give a small to medium-sized company?
Okay, so a small to medium-sized company on the sales side of things, it's typical to have sales team members that are ill-fitted for the position.
Okay.
Because small companies evolve and people wear different hats, and sometimes there's families involved or friends of friends and so on, and so you end up with people that are really not fitting well into their role.
Sure.
And so I would say the first thing I would say, Mark, is to assess. Always assess. Assess candidates for new hire, and assess existing members of the sales team for their competencies and behaviors before anything. Just always assess.
Okay.
And the second thing is to know their motivators. Each person on your sales team, know their motivators before you craft their compensation plan.
Oh, wow.
Because it's easy to assume that salespeople are motivated by money. And so everybody talks about the commission plan, the commission plan, the commission plan. But in reality, some of the best salespeople are not motivated by more money.
Huh.
They're motivated by other things, like being number one. They want to be recognized as number one. Or some are motivated by wanting to go out and just have the thrill of the hunt for new business.
Sure.
Others are motivated more by being part of a team. And so maybe team selling needs to be your focus. And so there's a lot of things here. But so number one is assess. Always assess for competencies and behaviors, not for personality style. And secondly, assess. And secondly is to know the motivators of each of your individual sales team members, because they're all going to be different in what motivates them.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
So, it's always, the Gary Vaynerchuk always makes an interesting comment that most of us spend more time worried about the update on our phone than we do what goes into our mind. and we always should be growing and expanding. So with that in mind, even as a seasoned professional in sales, what are you doing to kind of grow, expand, and look at new things that helps you grow your business?
It's great because it's so easy in my role to grow. Sandler has 3 conferences every year.
Oh, wow.
And we call it school, because we go to school. And,
okay.
and we're doing sessions for each other.
Right.
And breakout sessions and general sessions, but it's all about best practices and what's new and how to do the new well, right, and how to do the old better. So we're always learning from each other. And there's 250 of us worldwide.
Oh, wow.
So and all of them just top-notch people in terms of the skill sets in sales. And so we're plugged into that big time. All the podcasts, videos that come out all the time, I listen to them myself. I watch them myself. I am into that. I also really love HBR, Harvard Business Review. I do a lot of reading in that.
All right.
A lot of the Sandler books that come out, there's a whole bunch of those, plus other books. Like right now we're doing Start With Why.
Right.
By Simon.
That's
Sandler.
Right, the Leadership Forum, yeah.
It's a great
book.
Another one that talks about motivators.
Right.
As a matter of fact. And so I'm constantly doing that. And the other thing that I did, Mark.
What'd you do?
I took all the games off my phone.
What? Wow, I'm impressed.
It's a major step.
Okay. Good. Well, Al, I can't thank you enough for coming into the studio today and let us interview you. And I promise I will start working harder so I can get off the remedial program at Sandler.
I don't know. I think it fits you.
Wow.
Actually, we talked about some, and I know you're kidding, but
right.
In a way, I'm not kidding, because I think we always hear when people come out of our advanced class,
right,
and they go back to the foundations class in order to get certain certifications or
right,
whatever, we always hear this: Al, I forgot how great the basics are.
Exactly.
And there's a lot to learn from that. Just going back to the basics, mastering the basics. And because I think sometimes we get too cluttered with all the additional stuff we could know and do.
Well, and this is a perfect ending to our episode, because just like you have to go back to basics in sales because it's the foundation of everything, as a company, you have to go back to the basics of marketing. It's not complicated, folks. It should be simple. It shouldn't be difficult.
And it's not about you. It's about the market.
Exactly. It's about the customer. Al, again, thanks so much, and we really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Take care.
If you'd like to contact Al Simon, you can do it by phone at 770-622-7000. You can also, reach him by email at al.simon@sandler.com or on his website at simoninc.sandler.com.
With today's attention-driven economy, many small businesses are pushing aside marketing or making marketing less of a priority as they get busier and busier. I think most companies view marketing as an expense and not as an investment in the growth of their business. The reality is that there's nothing more important than marketing to the vitality of your business long term. You have to keep telling your story and blowing loud your own horn so your passion for what you do shines through all the clutter and noise that we listen to every day. So with that said, we want to hear from you about the amazing things you're doing to get the word out about your company and how you're drawing attention to what it is you sell or do. Now, that's something you're doing intentionally, or maybe even by accident, that work to bring in more customers. We want to brag on you. So here's how you can do that. Simply email us at team@csmediagroup.com and share a quick overview of your story in writing. Share your story so we can brag on you here at the Marketing Made Great podcast. Now, the best part is that your story will not only encourage others, but could very well translate it into a win from you to a win for someone else. So email us today at team@csmediagroup.com about your success story, and we'll get back to you right away. Who knows? We may even ask you to record your story right here on the Marketing Made Great podcast to be an inspiration to others. So contact us today. We're looking forward to hearing your story right away. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Marketing Made Great podcast. If you want more details about today's show and the resources mentioned, go to www.csmediagroup.com/podcast. Please be sure to send us your comments about the show and follow the link in the show notes to give us your suggestions for future show topics. With your help, we'll continue to only get better. Now, you can contact us directly with your topics at podcasttopics@csmediagroup.com as well if you'd like. Be sure right now to stop everything and subscribe to the show in iTunes or on your favorite podcast source so you never miss an episode of the Marketing Made Great podcast. While you're there, write us a positive review if you like the show. Also, we're going to ask that you spread the word to your friends about this podcast by visiting us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram with all your comments. Now, when you're posting, be sure to use our hashtag Marketing Made Great when posting so we can add the discussion online in all the social media platforms. Now, our show is produced in our studios located in Atlanta, Georgia's premier business accelerator, Atlanta Tech Park. I'm your host, Mark Treager, and I want to thank you so much again for taking the time to listen to this week's episode of the Marketing Made Great podcast.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show.